fact. The Office is an amazing show. Okay, maybe not a fact, but I think a lot of us would agree that this is very much the case. The show, which went on for 9 seasons, has cemented itself into pop culture for good, and rightfully so. The show features some of the best moments of pure comedy, as well as some of the most heartwarming moments of any television show ever, featuring regular people just going about their lives and dealing with what happens next. So today, I'm going to be ranking all 9 seasons of The Office from worst to best. Quick disclaimer with any of these videos, these are purely my opinion based on what I saw in the episodes and the seasons. Our list may not line up exactly, and that's totally fine. Remember to be respectful in the comments to others' opinions. Another short disclaimer is that I haven't seen all of these episodes or seasons super recently, so they may not be super fresh. And honestly, with a show this long, with 200 plus episodes, it's going to be hard to keep them all fresh in your mind at once, so just bear that in mind. My opinions on these seasons and episodes will change as time goes by, and that's perfectly fine. Before we get started, if you aren't already subscribed, make sure to hit the subscribe button to support the channel. It would mean a lot. And also, if you want to pause the video right now and go to the comments down below and write your own rankings of the 9 seasons of The Office so that we can discuss and compare them down below, I would love to know your own thoughts. If you would like to see a similar video with Parks and Rec as well, and maybe a ranking of my top 10 episodes of The Office, let me know in the comments. Be advised, this video will contain heavy spoilers for all 9 seasons of The Office, so please click away if you haven't seen the show yet. Oh, and yes, one more thing. I know I'm talking a lot before I even start the ranking, but from now on, I will be adding timestamps to these rating and ranking videos. So if you want to jump around, then check the descriptions for the timestamps, and you can skip to different slots in the ranking. With all that out of the way, let's get started. Coming in at number 9 is Season 8. When making this list, I was curious to see what others thought as well online, so I looked up a few rankings, and it seemed pretty universal that many seem to think that this is one of the worst seasons of The Office. For better or for worse, this season doubled down on James Spader as Robert California, who made a small cameo in Season 7, and to be honest, it did so to its detriment in my opinion. While James Spader is magnetic and you can honestly listen to the guy just talk about anything, his character is just kind of weird. The show, which had grounded itself in realism for a long time with real corporate structures and hierarchies, seemed to kind of go off the rails and into absurd territory. His character was just a little too much. It didn't really fit in with the show at all, honestly, and it just sort of threw off the character dynamics way too much for my liking. On top of that, the season introduces Nellie, who is just one of the weirdest and honestly most unlikable characters in The Office to me. I did not buy her character at all, and going back to absurd, really? You can't just walk into someone else's office and just take over the job like that. I'm definitely not buying that. As with all of their seasons though, this season has some good moments in it. But again, moments don't make a season what it is. The overarching story, which is still unfortunately tied to Saber, which is a terrible storyline by the way, is just bogged down by all of these random and weird ideas floating around that got thrown against a wall. Not much good came out of this season, and even Andy came full circle and just goes back to square one by kicking a wall. So, there's that. Coming in at the number 8 spot, we have Season 9, just barely ahead of Season 8 for me. And to be honest, most of Season 9 is about as lackluster as Season 8, but it is saved tremendously by the finale, because the finale is just beautiful. The last couple episodes with the teapot, with Jim and Pam, and the finale, they just make you look at the season with a little more of a rosy lens. That being said, Season 9 suffers from many of the same problems as Season 8. Yes, Robert California is gone, but the story is still all over the place. The Andy and Aaron storyline alone is just so confusing. It's not a cute will they won't they like Jim and Pam. I just genuinely don't know how they feel towards each other, and that's just odd. And no, you are not going to break up Jim and Pam. They almost did it, and in the behind-the-scenes interviews, they literally almost did put pen to paper on this story, but thank goodness they didn't. Because if they did, I would have just, I don't know, I would have been devastated for all the wrong reasons. Because look, I do respect them for trying to put real human struggle between two married characters, which is going to happen in a real relationship. I do. But come on, with the boom guy, Brian, in Season 9, the final season of The Office, really? Seriously, though? And Clark and Pete. Was this really the best time to introduce these new characters? To be fair, I don't hate them individually. I just don't think that this was the best time to introduce these characters, especially if it was only to throw off Andy and Aaron with the forced romance between her and Pete. And looking through the episode lists, there really aren't that many that stand out in my memory, except the finale, because man, that finale was awesome. When Steve Carell's Michael Scott came back to Dwight's wedding, that was unbelievable. It's just those moments that save the show, with Dwight and Angela getting back together, Jim and Pam. It all works out in the end, I guess. Coming in at the number 7 spot, we have, well, Season 7. Noticing a trend here? The show did tend to get progressively worse and worse as it went on. This season did have some true gems in there though, which immediately elevates it above seasons 8 and 9. From Threat Level Midnight to Michael's Last Dundies to Goodbye Michael, season 7 has its moments. And above all, it has Michael Scott, which 8 and 9 don't. And that's worth something, it really is. Because you just don't know how much you're going to miss Steve Carell until he's gone, and you feel it immediately. And speaking of which, I love Will Ferrell, I do. Elf is one of my favorite movies of all time, but what in the world was D'Angelo Vickers? He was just a jerk for no reason, even though at first he was kind of nice, I guess. What was that supposed to be? Things just kind of got weird towards the end of that season. The two main storylines going on for the majority of the season are Jim and Pam dealing with parenthood as well as Michael and Holly, and for the most part, these are fine stories. They're not groundbreaking or anything, and they're not super appealing, but they're there. And when Michael proposes to Holly, it's legitimately one of the best scenes in the entire show, because it's just so sweet and pure, and it encapsulates Michael Scott's journey to find love so perfectly. It's just, season 7 is really where you get to see The Office beginning to head towards a downward spiral, and it's really sad that it had to happen that way. There's really not that much ingenuity left, and all you're clinging on to are the characters, which again are the show's strengths if you watch my Office and Stranger Things video essay, because I would watch Dwight and Jim tackle almost anything, and it turns out in seasons 7 through 9, they really do try to test that theory. Coming in at the number 6 spot, we have season 1. Season 1 is not a bad season, but also it's hardly a season. It's 6 episodes. And first seasons are so difficult to pull off, especially because everyone's trying to establish these new characters and make them appealing without even knowing if the show will get picked up. We only really get personalities on Jim, Pam, Michael, Dwight, and oddly Roy. The rest of the supporting cast were just supporting cast, and most of them didn't even become regulars until the next season, like Angela, Kevin, and Oscar in accounting. However, what we did get in these 6 episodes were hints of something greater. First of all, we did get to see the beginnings of Jim and Pam, or PB&J. Their chemistry was rock solid from the very beginning, and that's likely what renewed them for the second season and beyond. And additionally, we did get the hints of the brilliant comedy between Jim, Dwight, and Michael as they just went through their day, causing shenanigans and just having a great time. So, yeah, while there's not much to say about these first 6 episodes, I think it's safe to say that if we had gotten a full-length 20-plus episode season in the style of the first 6, then I think it would have ranked higher on the list. It's a great start to the show. Coming in at number 5, we have Season 5. This season has some of my absolute favorite episodes for me in the entire show. If you haven't seen the clip from Season 5, Episode 7, Customer Survey, where Michael tries to teach Dwight how to be nice to customers while taking calls, oh my goodness, that is one of my favorite clips from the entire show, all 9 seasons. It gets me every single time. Weight loss is also a fantastic start to the season, and I mean, the proposal, that was so simple, so elegant, and just so amazing. I love how they didn't just go for it and make it this extravagant, grandiose thing like Michael's with Holly, which totally fits his character, but they just made it as simple as possible, which fits the Jim and Pam relationship, which is just so thoughtful. And of course, we got stress relief. Stress relief, when Dwight sets fire to the entire office just to prove a point. Classic Dwight. Oh, and of course, we have Frame Toby, which has Michael's most iconic and memed line. So, roll the clip.
No! God, please, no! 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 No!
So why is Season 5 so low on the list, especially compared to a lot of others? Well, for one, and call me crazy because I know a lot of people actually really like this arc, but I just don't like the Michael Scott Paper Company storyline. I just don't. It's weird to me. And for me, I just never liked Ryan as a character. I liked Ryan more when he was the temp and just kind of the butt of the joke, or the guy who sees how crazy everything is but just reacts to it. I really don't like the CEO Ryan who's addicted to drugs and is trying to outsmart everyone and be sleazy. I just never did. And that kind of leads me to the biggest complaint about this season, which is for most of it, Pam is apart from Jim. And something just felt wrong about that. For almost half the season, these two aren't physically together, and the show just doesn't work as well when they're not there. As for the overarching storyline, well, Idris Elba was a little bit of a stunt casting, and I don't think he's that likable to be honest, but he's fine, I guess. The ending of the season was awesome though, with Jim and Pam finding out that she's pregnant, and that was really, really well done. This season has a lot of iconic highs, but overall it's sort of in the middle, and that's why it's here on the list. Coming in at number 4, we have Season 6. People might think I'm absolutely crazy for putting Season 6 this high up, but guys, Season 6 has some golden moments in it. First of all, Niagara. I think, and I'm not ready to declare this yet, that Niagara might be my absolute favorite episode of The Office. I mean, if you don't get emotional watching the Office cast dance down the aisle intercut with the real wedding on the ship, and you'd seen the previous 5.5 seasons, I just don't know what to say. I just don't. Because that hour-long episode was one of the best things that I'd ever seen. And let's not forget about Koi Pond, or how about Murder? Or let's not forget about Secret Santa with Phyllis and Michael bickering over who gets to be Santa. Or, and most importantly of all, Scott's Tots. Get ready for the most hilariously cringeworthy episode of television ever. I just think that the writing and the storytelling in Season 6 was so consistently good. And yes, Saber is introduced in the season, and I don't love Saber, but I also don't really dislike it that much more than Michael Scott Paper Company, which is in Season 5. So that's why this season is a little higher than that. Overall, you just kind of get to see these characters in this show at a kind of peak with Niagara. If the show ended right there, I would have been totally happy. Does it all go downhill from there? Admittedly, yeah, but Season 6. Coming in at number 3 is Season 3. Season 3 is a great season of The Office. This is back when the showrunners and the writers knew exactly what they wanted to do with Jim and Pam, and this season it was Jim's turn to be aloof after Season 2 where Pam was with Roy. And it's Pam's turn to pine after her star-crossed lover the entire season. Many people at the time didn't like the character of Karen, who was played by the wonderful Rashida Jones, who, by the way, would go on to have a major role in the subsequent Greg Daniels series Parks and Rec. In hindsight, though, the character of Karen was honestly a really great one. I think she gave extra depth to Jim, and honestly, it wasn't really her fault that Jim was in love with Pam, and he didn't even tell her until much later anyways. On top of that, you have some awesome episodes in there as well. And seeing Andy interact with the Scranton branch was certainly something, especially after he punches a hole in the wall. Benihana Christmas is iconic as well, of course, and another one of my favorite clips is actually in the episode Grief Counseling, when they're making up stories based on movies. Because I love when Michael Scott has literally no idea when Ryan says Mufasa died in a stampede, because that's classic Michael. And man, this season pays off huge in the last 5 minutes when Jim asks Pam out on a date. This just made me so happy, because we waited 3 seasons for this, and this was almost like a huge weight lifted from my shoulders. Speaking of them being together though, coming in at number 2 is Season 4. Season 4 was the payoff of the first 3 seasons. Jim and Pam were together for a full season. That alone is enough to just make this season that much better than the others. And although this season was indeed cut short because of a writer's strike, they were still able to pack in a bunch of great episodes as we see Michael and Jan's relationship deteriorate and devolve into chaos, and Jim and Pam's love for each other only increase. From Did I Stutter to Branch Wars, which had another favorite scene of mine, where Karen is grueling Michael, Jim, and Dwight says, "We will burn Utica to the ground."
We will burn Utica to the ground.
To the iconic dinner party episode, Season 4 had it all. It's bigger, it's bolder, and it's just better. Which means, of course, coming in at number 1, we have Season 2. Season 2 is just quintessential The Office. The will they won't they tension between Jim and Pam is at its strongest, and honestly, that's when the show is at its best. And it pays off in a massive way in Casino Night, one of the best episodes of the entire show, where you feel the tension release, but it's also so bittersweet as Jim decides to leave. From the Dundies to Office Olympics to the fire, the fight, Christmas party, booze cruise, the injury, the secret, Dwight's speech, Michael's birthday, conflict resolution, almost every single episode of this season is pure gold. This is the writing of Paul Lieberstein, Mindy Kaling, Greg Daniels, Mike Schur, and so many more at their absolute peak. This is where we really, truly fell in love with these characters, and this is the season where the show grabs onto you and never lets go. And I'll always be grateful for that, because 7 seasons later, it may not have been as good in quality, but I care about those characters just the same. Comment down below with your personal ranking of the seasons of The Office. Again, if you want to see me do a ranking of my top 10 episodes or rank the Parks and Rec seasons, I will gladly do those videos as well. Just let me know in the comments. Make sure to subscribe and hit the like button to support the channel. If you want to check out some more videos, then check out the videos on the screen right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.